Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast, where I'm a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, this is a continuation of the series that I've been doing on foundation cards. It's kind of a strange series because I did one answering a question over on the minimalist side, and then I did one on the more advanced side, you guys who are more building your Zettelkasten of your dreams. And now this one is on what happens if you choose not to use a foundation card. What happens if you just say, okay, I'm going to link as best it goes, and don't worry about whether a foundation card would be needed. It comes about with this interesting book, The Timeless Way of Building by Christopher Alexander. Now, I began this book a while back, and I didn't get very far in it before I put it down for other things, and I'd only made maybe one or two main cards from the book. Then when I started my minimalist series, I used this as one of my books because it's a really, really interesting book, and I do love reading it. The minimalist series concluded, and I ended up picking this book up again. So in the process, I created another main card, and now the question was, well, where am I going to put that main card? I did a video talking about where I could put my minimalist file cards into Zeek, but I haven't done that yet. So they came up with the question of, what do I want to do with this new file card? Do I want to file it in the minimalist, where it would have a natural link? Or do I want to bring it into Zeek, where maybe the link might be more of a stretch? Well, I decided to put it into Zeek because I can't see adding more work for myself by adding more cards right now to the minimalist one, since I still at some point need to bring them all over into Zeek. But I should say a little bit about this book because it's really quite amazing. What I find with this book, whenever I pick it up, I read a little section and I end up almost going into a meditation. It brings up feelings, it brings back memories, it stimulates thoughts, and it stimulates my imagination. And I can barely move any further in the book because I don't want to lose out on all of the precious mental exploration that's going on based on the paragraph I just read. As a result, I'm accepting the fact that I'm going to be going through this book very, very slowly. I'll just pick it up here and there and read that paragraph and enjoy that meditation time and then set it down again. But it does give a really interesting example of what happens in a Zettelkasten if you choose not to make a foundation card where one might be appropriate. So come on over to the down-facing camera and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, here's the main card in question. And Christopher Alexander is talking about a desire that he claims is fundamental to humans, almost like an instinct, which is a desire to bring a building to life. Now, I think it's rather interesting that he thinks that that's something that's fundamental to all humans. It might be more that because he is an architect, but I could certainly see that we each have a desire to live in a structure that has interrelationships with other human beings. But here's some more of what he basically says. He makes some rather broad claims. He said these buildings that he's talking about are beautifully ordered, harmonious, yes, all these things, but especially, and what strikes us to the heart, they live. Well, what makes a building live? That's very nebulous, and yet upon reading this section, and there were more words to it as well, I began to recall some buildings and some places that I've been where I think I've experienced what he's talking about. He says they have that sleepy, awkward grace which comes from perfect ease. Well, there was a lot more that I wanted to capture, and so I used that asterisk symbol, which indicates to me that there's something on the back side, and then I picked up some more quotes. Now, the reason I wanted to pick up those quotes is because they're all perfectly related to this card. It's almost like gathering the facts that support a claim. These are the words that produce the feeling. My concern was that after a lapse of time, just this card by itself wouldn't elicit the feelings that I had, because so much of this reading this section was about the feelings that it brought up within me. So then I captured the whole thing with the tagline, "Each of us yearns for living spaces that have ease with nature and with our neighbors." So now, where is this card going to go? And I gave it free rein. I didn't decide for it in advance whether it would or wouldn't have a foundation card. I just said, let's see what card this one wants to have for its parent, since we're very much in the feeling mode here. And this is the card it picked. We know that words lead us to things, to realities far too glorious ever to be completely captured by words alone. And I can feel clearly why this card was chosen by this one, because there was kind of a lack of words to be able to describe what those living spaces offered. But they were definitely very glorious. And the part about them that was glorious was very difficult to capture by words alone. So this made complete sense to me as once I put my analytical mind into it, which my analytical mind is usually ready to take over. And this was quite the exercise in letting my feeling brain take a turn. If you're the other way and your feeling brain generally drives things, when you're playing with your Zettelkasten, let your analytical mind take a turn. Both sides of the brain get to play in a Zettelkasten, and that's part of the joy. So then what happens if I just say, okay, it gets to choose this card for its parent? What conversation is this card going to join? Well, it turns out that this card does indeed have a directory card associated with it. So let's take a look at what is going on in the conversation with this card already. There is a link, to that Cam Knight book, Can Speed Reading on Speed Reading. Can speed reading deliver results like slow reading? I didn't get very far in that book, so I didn't get to test that one yet. My eyes are always so big, so much bigger than my brain power in reading books. I've discovered I can buy them a whole lot faster than I can read them. But, don't I wish sometime that the clock would just stop and let me read them all? Well, there's another piece of the conversation as well. A term is a word the author has made unambiguous. I don't even have to look up the card to know where this one came from. It came from Mortimer Adler. And this is nailing down in a very thought manner what the term means. Strange that it picked this card about words being not equal to the task as its parent. It's a very interesting contrast, because Adler is saying, well, you have to clearly understand what the author meant. Father Schall is saying, sometimes the words just aren't going to be up to giving you what the author means. Interesting contrast. But the amazing thing here is this third one here, moments of delight, relatedness of to fiction. And guess what this is? Christopher Alexander, The Timeless Way of Building. Isn't that funny? Just free choosing from the Zettelkasten which card was its parent, and without any awareness of this other card, this one joined a conversation with a brother card from The Timeless Way of Building. And what a card this one is too. Just reading this, I remember it so much, so vividly. He's talking about spaces that are part private and part public. For example, a residence. I think of a little European community where there's an apartment above a cafe where the resident can walk out onto his balcony and look at the world going by on the little street in front of him and hear the sounds of the clanking dishes in the cafe on the ground floor. That's one of those magical spaces that this card is talking about. And that came to pass for me in a piece that was shared in Fusion Writing. We have a Fusion Writing group over on LiLLiPub. And Nathan Palmer shared a piece where he was describing a scene where the character is a grandfather and is an artist. and he has, in the opening scenes, he has stepped out onto his balcony and kind of heard the sounds of the little village around him. To me, this was almost a magical experience for me, being a very thought type person. That it made me also wonder if someone who comes to the Zettelkasten with a mind that is always forming connections and always open to imagination and feelings, how does it feel then when they come to a Zettelkasten and suddenly find that they can make an order out of things? Suddenly a logical pathway opens up for them. I think that's just so intensely amazing about a Zettelkasten, is that it for those who tend to be thought brain dominated, it helps to bring out your feeling side. And for those who tend to be feeling brain dominated, it lets you get a hold of your thought brain side. It's like bringing your whole brain to the party. And I don't know of any other tool that I've ever worked with that has that kind of power. It's a real staying power for me. And I just wanted to share that with you. Now, the interesting thing, of course, is really there was no foundation card needed. Yes, it's going to go off into architecture. But so what? If all of architecture grows up behind this one card with a quote by Father Schall, that's wonderful. He's talking about realities far too glorious ever to be completely captured by words alone. Now, Christopher Alexander is talking about realities far too glorious that are buildings, that are architecture, that are spaces where humans live, that are far too glorious for words alone to describe. It's a perfectly fitting place for the Christopher Alexander material to grow up. And if, along with that, more static information on architecture should grow up in the same area, it would not cause any more of a problem than to have Mortimer Adler saying, well, you've got to come to terms with the author. You need to know exactly what those words mean. In that lovely, immediate side-by-side contrast between the thought brain and the feeling brain, just present in the same conversation. Where can you find that? Where else in life can you find that? It's such a joy. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.